Shell Theatre in the City of Fort Saskatchewan. He has a 20-year career in the arts and has provided opportunities to serve as project manager, production designer, and organizer throughout Canada, United States, and Europe. And Arthur Lewandowski is the Community Events and Tourism Specialist for the City of Fort Saskatchewan. He has been in the special events community for the past 7 years with his previous experience with Northlands. He has a BA in recreation, sports, and tourism, so connected to our sector as well. So yeah, again, remember the Q&A portal for facilitating any questions that may come up today. And I'm going to turn it over to you, Josh and Arthur now. So take it away, guys.
First of all, thank you so much for ARPA and this opportunity to speak to our peers and fellow community members like this. We welcome this discussion as we all go through change right now. So thank you very much for this opportunity. It's a great opportunity. I would like to kind of start us off in thinking about our communities. And that is to say, as you've started to evaluate what you're doing for your community, are you closely looking at, for example, what's been done previously, and what is your community's expectations for any kind of event delivery? On that note, we took a look at what we do here in Fort Saskatchewan, and we said, well, we normally have a June event. Arthur, tell us a little bit about that June event.
Yes, of course. So we typically host something called the Legacy Park Family Festival. It's our first kickoff to summer event that happens a month prior to Canada Day. It's an opportunity where we actually invite community organizations to come and showcase and give some information to the community about what they do, with the caveat of bringing in activity for our citizens to take part in as well. At the same time, we provide a petting zoo, inflatables, we put local entertainment on our stage, invite food vendors to come out. So very much a community-oriented event, Josh.
So within that, immediately flags went up. Of course, we can't have petting zoos. We can't have food vendors as easily. We had to find a new way to do it. And for us, the decision was made to possibly move this to an online offering. What are we doing for them, Arthur?
So it's quite fantastic. You know, this all kind of came about very, very quickly. We were all on the same page that we wanted to do a virtual event. So within days, I received emails back from the community, from local entertainers, from local artists, from local businesses saying that, yes, they want to participate. They want to put forth some sort of content that they can still share with the community so that we can all stay connected still, essentially. So we decided to build out a schedule for about 3 days worth of content. Each of those videos are essentially 2 hours long. And like I mentioned, they would feature community organizations either doing storytelling through the public library. It would be local students coming and playing their instruments, singing. We had local recreation instructors come and do no equipment workouts, everything from Bollywood Zumba to a number of other exciting activities that people can kind of watch along with as well. So.
And everything from dance to music to everything else, it's about getting people moving again. And that's one thing that Legacy Park Family Fest did really well, were those activities. And we wanted to continue that in whatever way we could, of course. So that was an important part of what we delivered. We are intending to deliver on that. For those wondering, we'll be delivering that out through Facebook and Instagram Live, of course, on all of our social media accounts for the city. So be sure to check it out. And that'll be coming in June 5, 6, 7 or 4, 5, 6?
5, 6, 7, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Perfect. But I know many people are focused on Canada Day. So within that, I'd like to actually move to our first poll, if you don't mind, please, Patrick. I'd love to know where we currently stand on Canada Day in your community. Are you currently considering doing something for Canada Day, or have you been given, perhaps you've been given instruction that it should be something that we should not do? Just so we can kind of see where you currently sit right now. If you could take a second to just answer this poll, and then we'll kind of look at see where the community's at right now. Of course, it's not an easy decision to do a major event like this. For many communities, it is a large gathering event, and it's about bringing that community together. So when we started looking at it, we had to find new ways to do that and new ways to engage our community, of course. maybe if you don't mind, Arthur, just give us a little bit of background. What did we do in prior years?
Canada Day was a fantastic celebration. We put forth a lot of activities throughout the day. So we naturally started off with a pancake breakfast that was hosted by our fire department. We then went into a parade, very, very popular. Went into afternoon activities, went into afternoon entertainment, then went into evening entertainment, then went into fireworks. So there's a ton of things that we do throughout the day. So it's really interesting to try to think about what we can provide for this year's Canada Day to help supplement what we've done in the past, essentially.
Perfect. And I am seeing those results come up now. We're at about 78% people saying yes, and that's an awesome thing. So that's great to hear that so many people are looking to still engage their community on Canada Day. 22%, I'd love to, dive into that at another time, perhaps, to see if those are hard no's because of administrative choices that were made, or is it something where funding could be an issue, perhaps. But let's talk about some of those yeses, and let's talk about how Fort Saskatchewan's going to move forward a little bit. We are going to go forward with some new ventures, some new opportunities. We identified key points and expectations from our community in that we wanted to address some level of pancake breakfast because it was a staple in our event delivery. We wanted to identify, of course, the parade aspect of what that was, and then, of course, evening entertainment as well. And so how are we going to do that, Arthur?
So Pancake Breakfast, certainly an interesting one. We're going to be working with our mayor where she can do a live stream of her making pancakes out of her own home. That way we can engage the community and the community can do that along with our mayor, which I think is fantastic. The parade is certainly an interesting one. I think it's more of an initiative where we would advertise the community to dress up their front of houses, their garages, their front lawns. And then we would pick certain areas that we would go to with a car that has a camera mounted onto it so that we could capture those people coming out, kind of showcasing their pride, celebrating it. And then at the same time, we would stream the video online so people can watch how other people are celebrating Canada Day via this parade initiative.
We're very lucky. We're very lucky actually because we've got two brand new fire trucks that should be ready for this. So we're going to have them flanking the vehicle to kind of raise awareness. Hey, we're coming down your street. It's time to come on out and show your pride for Canada, and then live streaming through that.
Correct. And then we have the two regional approaches. So we kind of segued a little bit with Legacy Park Family Festival because we touched on kind of our own community coming together and being able to present some sort of content for our audience. And in talking to the regional counterparts that we have here in Alberta and in our surrounding community, there was that same appetite. So a little bit of background, we actually usually met with these regional counterparts quarterly throughout the year. But once COVID-19 hit, we decided that a weekly meeting would be a little bit more important to do. So essentially we talked about facilities in each of our municipalities. We talked about day camps, recreational programming, and then there was also a number of special event coordinators. So what we did is created a little bit of a subcommittee with just those coordinators who focused on Canada Day and quickly came to the realization that we wanted to work together, decided that we wanted to do an online virtual activity kit that people can download off of their own computers. Very, very simple, PDF, 8x11. It would include a little bit of a description of each of the municipalities, some past pictures of Canada Day, some fun facts, and then a number of things that people can do to still celebrate Canada Day out of their own homes. So whether it's coloring sheets, whether it's how to create edible art, to do some sort of rise and shine workout the morning of Canada Day. So a number of things that people still do out of their homes so that they don't feel like they have to sit quietly and not be able to showcase some sort of Canadian pride. And then secondly is working on a regional concert series, which Josh will talk about a little bit more.
One of the ways that the Shell Theatre is trying to diversify our service delivery is by providing full streaming services from. And one thing that I wanted to be careful of as we went down this venture was that right now we're in a super saturated virtual market for presentation. And that is to say that there is a ton of artists already presenting great stuff, great content all over many different types of social media. And we didn't want to interrupt that. So in any way, I wanted to my goal was to make sure that we could provide a high quality product and deliver it to the various communities that were implied in the region. So our goal is we're actually going to be recording all of the major headliner artists that they were going to bring in and to the Shell Theatre in a safe manner and record them there for live presentation that evening. So it's a busy time right now as we all kind of move towards all these plans, but we're excited about it, and that's the big thing. A big part of it, of course, will be the marketing around it, making sure that perhaps we don't mention parade because of the concerns of too many people getting involved too closely on that right away. So that's going to be in the later parts of our marketing campaigns, but also making people know that our community will be doing something for Canada Day and making sure that they understand to look for it when it comes time to have those events and activities. We want to show our activeness in the community to show that we're still injecting that and the important aspects of culture into our area to make it the thriving community that it is, of course. I did see a question come into the Q&A in regards to June 5, 6, and 7, and that right being on Seniors Week as well. Although many of our activities are for LPFF or Legacy Park Family Fest are not directly related to or for seniors per se, I know that our FCSS department is doing great things for our seniors as well, and our senior coordinator is an astounding person who does great work for them, for sure. Yeah, so with regards to Canada Day, the big thing for us is, again, that take home, that they've got a solidarity package that they can work with, something physically that we're giving to them. Perhaps, Arthur, could you just speak to how we're going to deliver that out to them?
Absolutely. So by a solidarity package, Josh is referring to some sort of takeaway that the community can come pick up, take back home with them so that they can, again, show some sort of pride for Canada Day. So we're thinking of putting in some sidewalk chalk into this package, along with a recipe for some sort of specific Canadian dessert. So that could be Nanaimo bars, for example. We wanted to work with one of our local grocery stores as a distributor for this package. They have easily jumped on board. We wanted to create about 5,000 packages that people can come pick up for free. And like I mentioned, some of those contents within the bag gives them the opportunity to go and do it together as a family, such as the sidewalk chalk. So not only can they upload their photos onto Facebook to showcase to the community what they are doing, but you could also turn it into some contesting as well, where we can offer up some prizes for some of the more creative pieces of art that we see out there.
And a big part about that is that organic growth that we're looking for on our social media engagements. We want to make sure that we are trying to get that community actively engaging, providing their content and having those discussions around these offerings to grow organically as well. I did see a question from Tanya in the Q&A in regards to being part of the activity kit. One careful consideration that we've done with this regional collaboration is, even though we would love to work on a province-wide approach on this, there is a finite amount of time that we have on this one, and there is a finite amount of resources. I think that anybody wishing to be involved, it is pretty late in the game right now. We are pretty far along in our planning. But I would strongly suggest to bring this to your community in your own way. And that's a big thing. It's not everybody's going to work on the same scales. Not everyone's going to work in the same levels. Maybe you want to go giant with your activities. Maybe you want to go giant with your solidarity packages. That's okay. Anything you're offering out there is a great offering. It's a way to engage, and that's the important thing about it. There's no limit to what you can do except for budget, time, and staff resources, of course. So you'll do the best with what you've got for sure. I hope that answers the question. Maybe.
Yeah, Josh, I'll also chime in really quickly and just say that obviously the Heritage Canada is working on something as well from a national level. So they themselves will also create some sort of virtual kit that you'll be able to share with your own communities as well. So whether it's tracks to saying, "Oh, Canada," coloring sheets as well. So look for that on the Heritage Canada website as well. That should be out on the website latest June 15th. So keep your eyes on it. Once it is out, it's something that you can link back to your own websites or whatever social channels that you have to share with your community so that they have some things that they can do as well.
That's a great segue, actually, if you don't mind. And let's focus on the positive. That information from Canadian Heritage might be out as early as May 28th as well. So something to keep in mind is that funding aspect of it. I'm guessing that some people on the call maybe had conversations with their Canadian Heritage representative in regards to Celebrate Canada funding that was involved. And of course, the rules and the criteria that have changed around that funding model, of course. So if you haven't as yet, I would strongly suggest just get in touch with your representative from Canadian Heritage to talk about that delivery and how that delivery has changed for you and what that could mean for any agreement that you currently have in place, of course. Looking at the funding model for what we're doing here, it is a little bit more involved because of that regional collaboration. Certain people are offering up direct deliverables, like for example, the theater being in use, that has a direct cost associated with it. Some people are doing the marketing aspect of it, and some people are providing a little bit more for artists and stuff like that. So understanding that you have to have a clear, concise plan in place and sometimes some form of agreement or letter of understanding so that it can be that everyone's happy with the finished product on that. Of note with that delivery, by the way, that final output will be a one-time viewing. And that is to say, it will not be done live. We will be pre-recording it so that we can get the highest production quality available. But we want to do a one-time viewing because of a lot of different copyright rules that are implied if you start to keep it in it for a duration of time as well. And also respecting the artist's rights and their craft. And that is to say that they are fully compensated for every time that that video is shown. So that's why we've chosen a one-time showing on that, if that helps at all. And speaking back to funding again, we are fortunate enough in Fort Saskatchewan to have some great industry partners that make it possible. Could you speak to that for 1 second, please?
Absolutely. So both for the Legacy Park Family Festival and for Canada Day, we have a lot of major sponsors that still wanted to participate in Canada Day. So we've had to be somewhat creative in terms of how we still involve them, just because, we can't directly have them connected to the Pancake Breakfast anymore, or we can't have them connected to fireworks because we are not doing that anymore. So we've all found a way to connect them with some of the personalized activities that we're doing. But at the same time, we also had to be very cognizant about our regional partners as well. So for the activity book and for the evening concert series, we came to an agreement that we would not pursue any sponsors just because we didn't want to have anything conflicting between the regional municipalities that could affect that relationship moving forward into future years. But, if you do have a set number of sponsors that you already work with, I think it's still okay to connect with them and see where they are at. We did not actively pursue any additional sponsors because we all know that we're going through some very hard times. But just knowing that, keep that communication lane open, talk to the partners that you typically talk to, see where they are at with their business model and how they're moving forward, and simply ask the question if they still want to participate. So.
That's a great point, and keeping in mind that open dialogue is essential as things change. Many people are talking about those changes, and we're really thankful for Canadian Heritage's flexibility, for example, to be able to offer this differently, but also realizing that our sponsors have expectations. So it's about those expectations meeting their mandate as well, because that's what a true partnership is when you're talking about sponsorship, for sure, is meeting their mandate and ours as well, for sure. I see there are tons of questions coming in. Thank you very much. Can we share a list of what's going to be involved in our kits? I don't know if it's finalized yet. It's an active changing thing for sure. I believe that will be something we could distribute a little bit later on, perhaps. Is there any restrictions on that I'm unaware of, Arthur?
Not at all. I think this is another opportunity to reach beyond just even our own communities and touch base nationally with everyone that's on this call as well. So I have no issues sharing some of the ideas that we have currently in the works for this package. And then certainly once it's actually finalized and has all come together, then we can share that content with you as well.
Awesome, awesome. And then also I would ask everybody to kind of keep an eye nationally of what's happening, especially the national timelines. And that is to say that if by chance, I don't know, maybe Ottawa streams fireworks, is that going to happen during anything that you may be trying to present digitally at that same time? Just to make sure there's no conflicts, but also making sure that it's going to meet your community's needs as well, for sure. There is, I believe, a larger project in the works for the nation. I can't speak to the specifics on it, of course. I just know that they are planning something, and we look forward to hearing what the nation has planned for it as well. So I think that'll be great. Yeah, I think we've kind of touched on most of the key points that we really wanted to talk about. I think now, or do we want to talk a little bit more about virtual concerts? What do you think?
I'll just say a couple things. There was a question in the chat box that maybe we could just touch on quickly. You guys might not have an answer for. I think I may, but I'll also encourage people to use the chat box, because we can save the chat box and share it afterwards, to dump your ideas that you're doing in your community that might be unique. And it may fill up quick, but don't worry about that. We can share it with people afterwards. But please use the chat box to kind of share your ideas in your own communities. The one question I do see in the chat box was around the fireworks aspect, and I think I know the answer from your guys' perspective. I do know that there is communities that are still entertaining the idea of fireworks. Beaumont is one, and I've heard of Whitecourt as well. Obviously, that's going to be an individual community's kind of decision point that they're going to have to work through with their fire department and fire regulations and just Alberta Health Services, how you can do it in a safe way. I know Beaumont feels like they're on a hilltop, so they can do it and their community can see it from their backyards. Whitecourt, I heard that they are going to go do it by a place where there's a lot of parking available, and they're going to probably encourage people to stay in their cars while they're doing it. So there may be safe ways to do fireworks. Any firework chat in your guys' side of things and how you might do it or might not do it?
There was certainly a lot of discussion on it, but it was very hard to put a whole bunch of resources into fireworks, obviously without people being able to come see it live. There was lots of talks about maybe streaming it online potentially as well, and some of our local even firework providers came to us with some suggestions as to what they can still do. So I'd say if anyone's still entertaining that thought, touch base with their fireworks provider, and they have a ton of ideas as to how they can still provide that service to you without it being a completely live event.
Perfect. Yeah, so I think, maybe Josh answer that, and I think you're safe to go into your next topic area there on that virtual concert.
Well,
so
just one last thing on fireworks is in those discussions that you're having with your fireworks provider, something to keep in mind is that they are offering it out a lot higher. And that is to say, if they can push the firework a lot higher, it does increase the viewability, and perhaps if your community, depending on the layout of your community, it may work a little bit better, is one aspect of what they're doing. One little flag I'm going to put up on that is just be careful of all anything else that may be up there and any other rules or permitting that may be required when you shoot it that much higher, of course, because there is a greater risk, of course, weather and perhaps there's other things up there that you have to consider for sure. So with regards to the virtual streaming and the virtual concerts that we're offering out, a lot of what we're trying to do is in regards to pre-recorded content. And the bigger aspect of it, and I really would like to focus on this from a lot of my other calls, is the concern that we have for our artists. And that is that, number one, the size of the artist, the logistics of getting them to the venue to record, for example, but also even something as simple as, are they able to physically rehearse to get to a place where they're ready to fully perform? So keep that in the back of your mind as you go down those ventures. Many artists are doing live streams from home, which is a great thing, and it's an awesome way to engage in new music and new ways of culture delivery. So please look at that. Many people are looking at service offerings, including series offerings or subscription offerings to extended programs that could be offered there. So that way it's a great way to kind of deliver that product as well. But what you want to do is you want to separate yourself. And that is to say, to provide something unique, provide a unique opportunity for people to actively engage from your community, keeping in mind that most of your social media is going to touch them first, and you would hope it would grow then organically through them as they become fans of what you're doing. but there is a lot of questions about, well, what do we physically use to get it out there? The best way I can say that is there's a lot of great information online about this. I'm a big fan of certain softwares that I think that are useful for that. For example, if you look at OBS, for example, or Restream, those are great opportunities. And then the last point I would kind of leave you one is a question that came up in the Q&A from Leanne in Cambridge. A great question about In Tandem in regards to SOCAN fees or resound fees for the broadcasting or the broadcasting rights that are implied by it. Keeping in mind that the social media platform that you choose to deliver it on may be already paying those fees in order to have that content out there. There also may be restrictions depending on which social media platform you choose on whether or not you can have sponsorship overlays with logos and stuff like that. So I know that that's been an issue for YouTube, for example, as well. Did you have anything to add to that at all in any way, Arthur?
No, I can go into a little bit of how we're laying it out if you're okay with that. Yeah. So again, going back to this regional approach, we are simply going with Alberta artists, kind of going with that notion of, that hashtag Alberta Strong, much like we had when we had the Fort McMurray forest fires. So keeping it very localized here and essentially asking each of the artists to come to the Shell Theatre, provide a 20-minute set, which allows them to do a little bit of a preamble, thank the municipalities for the work that they're doing, and then do about 2 or 3 songs that can fit that 20-minute time slot. And I think it's also a great opportunity to invite your mayor and council to be involved as well. So we'll be having them pre-record some videos as well as they introduce each of the artists. So it's kind of the way that we're laying it out. And then Josh can continue to talk about maybe those platforms and more about how we're putting this together.
So our finished output will be on Facebook Live and Insta Live, as previously mentioned. The way we're going to actually physically do it is through a shared event and then hosting watch parties on the private accounts to do that. Once that's brought out to it, we're targeting a 1080 output on this one, which is just a higher quality output than you'll get from most as well. I'm just kind of reading through the chat window here, and I love hearing what High River's going and doing up there. That's awesome. Great to see Emma from Whitecourt. Hi, Emma. And nice to see that you guys are going to be doing fireworks as well. So that's awesome stuff to see and hear, and I do appreciate that. Jumping over with regards to Leanne's question about Facebook Live and Insta Live licensing fees. It is my understanding, and please don't quote me on this, but it is my understanding that within Facebook Live and Instagram Live, all the licensing fees for copyright have been paid by Facebook directly to In Tandem. And then with regards to the artists being paid, thank you, Alana, for your question. I don't know what CARFAC is. Oh, no.
Good, you don't know. I was going to say, I don't know what it is. So.
I've never heard of CARFAC. Maybe could you provide some input on the chat window for that? Basically, what we're going to do is we're going to rely on each regional partner to pay those artists directly from as they were originally contracted or planned. I could go on to an entire whole new webinar about artist negotiations and contracting. Of course, in this time of COVID, there's a lot of talk about the force majeure and the implication of those contracts as well. The best thing I can say on that is that you want to have an active dialogue with the agent or the artist directly if you're working with the artist directly in regards to those conversations to make sure that they have a clear understanding of what the expectation is, what the output is, and then understanding fully what the logistical expense is versus how much the artist is actually going to physically pocket. Another question in regards to, are we paying the performers? I love that question. My personal belief, and this is something I am very passionate on, is that every artist who delivers something to anybody should be paid for their craft, for their thousands of hours to get to that point. And I honestly believe that every artist should be paid at all times, bar none. So even for Legacy Park Family Festival, we're working on honorariums for those artists as well to understand. Because we are controlling the live stream itself, we will not be having a tip jar opportunity. That is not to say that we will not, we'll still be linking out to the artists pages. And if they had something there directly, we could provide something like that. But the understanding or the concept that we're working upon is that these regional collaborators are directly paying these artists fair wage to do their job. And we shouldn't have an expectation for the community to add to that. Don't get me wrong. I know that every artist is hurting right now, and I would strongly suggest that everybody check out a new artist every day if they can. And the best way to support them is to get their money directly into their pockets through stuff like merch buys and purchases directly from their website. Absolutely. If they have tip jar options, those are absolutely great as well. Okay, so thank you for the information on CARFAC and the minimum, or sorry, the annual minimum fee schedule that is implied. So thank you very much. I appreciate that. I think I got to most of the questions. Yep. Yay! No.
Good job on that.
I think this might be a good time to kind of have that discussion about maybe some more Q&A, or if there's any other information that people are looking for in regards to the offerings that we're undertaking in Canada Day, or for Legacy Park Family Festivals, or perhaps virtual concerts. We'd love to hear your questions about what you may be thinking.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, guys. So throw your in the Q&A portal. If you have any outstanding questions, go ahead and throw them in the Q&A. I think we're pretty much on timelines here, so we probably do have a bit of time to answer some questions. Go ahead and keep populating that chat box with what you're thinking of doing, so we can share with others as well and get some creative ideas. I see a question that just says, "Hey, Josh." So what's up, Josh? No. Hopefully somebody just hit the button soon, so maybe we'll get more to that.
I think that's Kelly Sadaway from. I think that's Kelly. That might be Kelly Sadaway from Whitecourt saying hi. And if it is, hey Kelly, how you doing? Nice to see you.
So she's asking if you could talk about your drive-in setup. So yeah, we're just going to move into that. So if there's still questions on the Canada Day, feel free to put them in there too. But let's move on to your. I know the acronym is MUTS, which I love, but movies under the stars. So maybe I know this is a really hot topic out there, is this drive-in piece. So I'm going to throw it over to you guys again to kind of introduce what you're doing. And, some people may have some questions as we go through this part as well. So.
Absolutely. Arthur, why don't you get us started with a little bit of history? Where have we started with Movie Under the Stars, or those MUTs, if you would?
You bet. So we've actually been doing it for over 15 years. Movie Under the Stars is an annual favorite. We essentially put up a jumbo screen in one of our more popular parks called Legacy Park. It's about a 40 by 20 screen. We work with a group called Fresh Air Cinema to put that up for us. And essentially what we do is provide some activities that are related to the theme of the movie for about an hour and a half prior to showing. We invite a local organization to come and sell food on site, and all the proceeds go back to that community organization that's providing that service. And then essentially we go into a movie. So we have a bit of a voting period to get some engagement prior to that event as well. So we have a poll of 4 to 5 different options that people can choose from based on a theme. Have them vote for about a month and a half. And then once we have a winning movie, then we plan as to what those activities could be and what movie we would be playing. So over to you, Josh, on how we are going to be altering that event into a drive-in event.
So basically it was previously offered in Legacy Park. It was bring a blanket, sit on the ground. Unfortunately, not going to be able to do that this year. So we changed it up a little bit. I think some people wanted to see a little bit more about the setup. So let's take a look at that setup. This is what we're currently got planned, and this is just in a field that we have located behind the Dow Centennial Center. Right now, we are providing a safe distancing of about 6 feet between each vehicle as best possible under the concept, and there are a few key concepts to kind of get into, that people will not be able to exit their vehicle in any way. If by chance something pops up, an emergency pops up, they can call for attention, and then we will most likely advise them to leave the site. Is the safest way we can do it, just to make sure there's no cross-contamination. We are using a ticketing system to provide a reservation basis. There is no cost for these tickets, but this allows us to provide some level of contact tracing to know who's in the space on some level. And then you can see within this setup, basically we're going to try to flow in people one way and then exit them out right another way. The screen on this one is the jumbo drive-in, which is to say that it's about 45 to 50 feet wide and 3 stories high. And then everything is broadcast out through an FM transmitter so that it comes in right to the radio in your vehicle. And yeah, so our current capacity is about 90 on this showing right now. We're very happy with the way that our community has engaged this. The interest as soon as we put it out there was amazing. So we put it out and we were sold out 3 hours later. With the Facebook invite event that we did, we've got interest of almost 400 people right now looking at this, and that kind of speaks to the appetite for people to get out of their to get out of their house, to do something with their family safely, and that's what this opportunity is providing them a little bit more. Of course, we're very proud of these new fire trucks that we have, and they have amazing names that were named by our community. So this is an opportunity to perhaps, if they're in town in time, we're crossing our fingers to meet Blaze and Sparkles when they come out and see this show as well. Perhaps, Arthur, if you don't mind, could you speak a little bit about the engagement piece that we have from our awesome sponsor?
Absolutely. So this kind of goes back to what I mentioned earlier in terms of still connecting with those sponsors. Typically, we had Co-op come on board and provide title sponsorship for our regular live event. So it was a simple conversation, throwing it out to them saying, hey, there's an appetite for the community to get together to do something. Are you interested in this drive-in event and helping us out a little bit too? So they've been able to assist from a monetary perspective to help offset some of the costs, the logistical costs of bringing the screen on board. They are providing some free popcorn as well that people can pick up the day before or the day of the movie so that someone has some sort of snack with them in the car as well. And they provided some pre-show videos as well specific to our community, which I thought was fantastic. So not only an overarching message for Co-op as a whole, but specifically talking to what Fort Saskatchewan was doing and their appreciation of the fact that we are still putting something forth for the community. So a lot of what we find important in the community is the same as what our sponsors find important in the community as well. So,
and it is about finding that common ground again in that partnership, for sure.
Now, Patrick, I know we had another poll question too. Maybe we'll throw that up eventually here if we can, tied to this. I don't know if that works.
Yeah, I would love to. Yeah, I think that question was in regards to special events. How many people are actively looking at doing special events? And if so, how many are you looking at doing? So if we could toss that one up.
And while that's up, I know that, and it's not surprising me because this drive-in thing is hot. So lots of questions. So maybe I'll just kind of facilitate through these with you guys and you can answer. So the first one, with the broadcast, and you mentioned the FM, you're just doing it over the FM. Is there software that's being used? What software is it? And I saw a question down earlier. Is there licensing cost with that as well?
Great question, and one that we had as well. Fresh Air Cinema does provide an FM transmitter. It's not done through software. It's directly through the hardware. It is not offered out on a data package. It's offered out straight transmission on FM. So for that reason, you do need a license, and that license is provided by the vendor that is providing it. We love working with our partner on this one, but there are many AV companies that are looking for work right now, and that could provide that input in regards to FM transmitting that information out there. So it's absolutely no problem. We do have to be conscious of the frequencies that are in use in the space as well. So you'll need a frequency map of what's going on there. To better understand, what you want cross traffic coming over on your radios or something inappropriate, even worse, right?
Okay, perfect. So what I'm hearing, and that's a good point, is maybe if you already work with a local AV company, that would be a good place to start if you're starting from scratch.
Absolutely, and they're usually pretty honest with you. If they can't do it, they'll tell you straight up that's not something they've got in their wheelhouse. So have that discussion, and the keywords you're looking for is that you need an FM transmitter for broadcasting drive-in movies.
Okay, perfect. What about your washrooms? What are you going to do with the washrooms on site, if anything at all?
That's a great question. And according to the AHS guidelines that we received and the feedback we received from our task force, our EOC, and of course our leadership team, that we will not be offering washrooms at any point. So we're making sure that it's abundantly clear to anybody prior to arriving. Maybe watch the size of the drinks that you've got. maybe especially if you've got little ones in the car. And if by chance someone has to go that badly, then unfortunately they may have to leave site.
Perfect. The next one's around the whole concept of staffing. How many staff do you think you're going to need to pull this off, and what type of enforcement security are you going to use in case people start to get out of their cars and those type of things?
Well, I will let you know that we are, of course, subject to the guidelines that are currently placed in the time with us planning for this on the 23rd. Those current guidelines that we're planning for right now is that we have a total of 15 staff maximum on site for this one. I believe, and don't quote me on this, that MES, or that's to say municipal enforcement, may be on site as well. But we firmly believe in strong messaging. It'll be on the screen as you arrive. It'll be in every Facebook post as you come up. What are our expectations? And then also, what are we expecting from our patrons as well, so that it's crystal clear and people are really understandable. We were very fortunate, actually, and I didn't speak of this earlier, but we had a local church organization that really wanted to do a drive-in Easter event. So we provided that was our first time going through a drive-in event of that nature. Then it did take place on city property, so there were some concerns that way. We raised our concerns, AHS raised their concerns, and we found a way to safely offer that out to I believe the count was around 68 vehicles that were in place on that one, and it went over really swimmingly. Fortunately, we've got a little bit better weather than we did back then, of course, and we're even looking at future opportunities with that same church organization to see if it's possible to continue that offering. I would strongly ask you to look at your regional implications and have an open dialogue with AHS, your task force or EOC, and of course your leadership team to find what's going to work best for your operation.
Perfect, thanks. And I see that AHS question was there. I think that's been answered. And I see Channing also says AHS does have some guidelines to follow for people if they want to get in touch with their local Alberta Health Services. The one question you may not be able to feel comfortable answering, because there was a question on, what for the size of screen that you guys are doing, what are the rough costs? Like, is there a ballpark cost that something that pulling this off might be? And well, if you don't want to answer it, feel free.
Well, I understand, and with people looking at this, you need to get at least a budgetary sense of what it is. First and foremost, it depends on your existing relationship with the vendor that's providing the bulk of the product that's implied. Keep it in mind. You also want to keep in mind that there is the licensing fee for that movie as well, and we do believe in paying that licensing fee and making sure that everyone is compensated for that. I see that Diane has posted. We are paying about $5,000 right now per venture on this one, and that does not include some of the on-site staff time that is implied, but that doesn't cover most of your hard costs for that.
Perfect. One other question just popped up here before we get to the poll answers here, but first aid emergencies, you did mention that you're gonna, if there's something does arise, you're gonna ask them to leave the parking lot at least, but any thoughts around how you're gonna deal with first aid emergencies?
Well, first and foremost, we're firm believers in having all of our staff fully trained in first aid should an emergency arise. We understand that this is a bit different now in the delivery of that first aid, and we will always do so safely with instruction from the task force and AHS as their guidelines allow. We are fortunate enough that this location that we've chosen just happens to be very close to the detachment for the RCMP, and there's also EMS usually pretty close as well. So we know that it's something that we will carefully guide our staff to provide first aid if absolutely necessary. But of course, a big part of that is triaging and understanding the importance of it so that we can properly deliver that safely.
All right, Brad Bailey, I might have missed this mentioned or not, but Fresh Air Cinemas also allows advertisements to be played prior to the start of the feature. So it's a good opportunity to generate some other advertising or sponsorship revenue, perhaps.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. With that sponsorship that we have with our great community partner there, they'll be doing videos prior to the event. It also allows us to get some information about perhaps if we're doing June's proclamation for Parks and Rec Month, of course, and getting people active again.
All right, a question on the date. You said June 23rd. How late do you need to begin with the movie for the sunset? So
That's completely my bad. I probably said June 23rd, but I meant to say May 23rd. Yeah. It's with all these events, I get them all mixed up. I'm so sorry. We are doing it on May 23rd. And so what we're planning on that is an 8:15 arrival for a 9:15 start of show, because we're banking on sunset happening right around that time. And of course, the key point is that you cannot start it until after sunset. So plan for a later evening for sure.
Perfect. Suzanne mentions that there's going to be new first aid guidelines coming out, so we'll look for those. Retraining may be necessary, she says. So yeah, that might be an important thing to be aware of. I think you already answered the police one, but you did mention that bylaw might want to be on site, but you haven't.
Yeah.
On that.
Yeah, they could be on site on that, and that's just a precautionary. We love the visible side of them. Sometimes just having them on site in all of their gear does kind of put the fear into some of the patrons about leaving their vehicles, of course. So it's just playing it safe that way for sure.
Perfect. So the poll results are up there. So I think encouraging. I think most of the people on that answered are doing looking at least still doing some multiple events. So that's good to see.
Yeah.
I think we had one last poll question. Maybe that was it. Maybe we're good. Oh, maybe the other one was an organizational. Do you have another question there? Okay, here it is. Yeah. Does your organization have an appetite to produce events based on the last poll? That we probably went out of order here, but I'm assuming most of you do. So that's probably good to see in today's environment. But
that's the big question is whether or not your organization does have an appetite for it. And that is to say that it's your job to kind of create that and be the champion of that, to get people excited about these events, even when it becomes harder to deliver, just like it is now. So providing those opportunities a little bit differently and creating that vigor within your organization to continue to create great things for your community is important.
And I would say be proactive as well. So before we even had really any approvals on some of these events, we were very proactive in terms of what can these events look like moving forward. So coming up with some plans that you can present to your leadership team so they can take back review and then be able to make adjustments as you go until you do come up with a final product that you do want to produce.
And also you want to be sure to aim high with those budgets and over deliver with your patrons, making sure that it's clear what you're delivering, but over deliver on what you can do. And that's great that we're seeing a 91% from your organization appetite. That's awesome. That's really exciting, actually. So great news.
I think it was before the call started, Josh, you did talk about something I think that's pretty key here is that you need a champion in your community. So maybe you could speak to that just quickly too.
Well, I think that many organizations have their champions in, and those people that are driven by passion, often accommodator type personalities that just want to get it done. We're so gifted here in Fort Saskatchewan that we've got a great group of people like that. Of course, Arthur is a big part of that, but also the theater team and that drive with passion. And with those champions could come from private organizations that you have within your community as well. You want to harness that passion and really push it back into your community as much as possible, for sure. So that you can meet these needs and also create and spread the wealth of culture and rec opportunities.
Perfect. I see a couple of other good suggestions in terms of pulling off the drive and stuff. So I'll look to schools and libraries as potential partners because they may already have some licensing available on movies. Shooting on the side of a large building may be another option for some communities. So that's something to keep in mind as well. So those are great ideas to scale things to the size of the community and size of the project you have. How many cars did you have in yours?
We plotted for 90 in this one.
90, yeah. Okay.
And my big thing on that is the distance that the last person is away from the screen. Also keeping in mind that if you do look at this venture, you want to make sure that the ambient light around the screen is compensated in direct relation to the amount of output of that, the brightness of the projector itself. So that's why sometimes bringing in the professionals with the really big projectors that are super bright, or even the screens that sit so much higher so that you can actually see them from a distance, could make quite a difference for your offering.
Perfect. I see a couple more coming in here. So, and please, we'll open it up now. We have a few minutes left. So even if it's back to Canada Day or community events, if you want to throw those questions out as well, please do. How many do you have? Is this a one-off or are you going to continue the series?
Well, with everything changing, and there's a lot of uncertainty right now, we do formally plan for one right now. We do have, of course, our standing time in August when we will look at another offering, and we're always looking at future offerings as well, as long as the business case makes sense per car to kind of do as well. There's a great question about liabilities. That is a great question. And that's about risk. And that's about what is the appetite for risk in your organization. I can't speak directly to the decisions that were made here in the City of Fort Saskatchewan, but I do applaud the City of Fort Saskatchewan for taking on these opportunities, because it is such an important thing for our community. Absolutely.
Pretty specific question, but have you thought about if a car loses battery power and if you're going to boost it? So.
Yeah, and again, the liability is implied by that. It is strongly suggested by the vendor to actually have a battery on site to boost those people. We have chosen not to. We will provide as much support as we can through, calling CAA, guiding them to the right location, whatever's necessary that way. It is a frequent occurrence for people that do these drive-ins as well. So something to definitely consider.
I know your answer to this one because you're not having the concession. You talked about the popcorn beforehand that people could pick up, but and this is probably just something people are going to have to continually monitor as some of the restrictions do loosen up in terms of food concessions and stuff like that. There may be possibilities, but I know you guys are not planning any food concession, right?
At this time, just given the guidelines that are in place, we're not planning anything, of course, but we're really excited to work with that community organizational partner that is providing it in advance, so that everybody who's attending the event can just stop by, pick that up, and have it in the car when they arrive.
I really like this question here too, because it's probably right up your alley, but have you guys started to think about the drive-in concept for live performances, maybe a concert or a theater and stuff like that?
We've been spinning our wheels on that on many different levels. Of course, when you get into multiple broadcasts on FM transmitting, the CRTC is closely monitoring those stations and making sure that we are being careful in the way that we're doing it. If it is a frequent occurrence, then we're looking at a different type of license, as opposed to a one-off license for FM transmission. Some people believe, and this could be the case, is that we could get to a point where perhaps they could have their windows or even their roofs down and still stay in their vehicles, in which case they could enjoy it audibly as well through live speaker presentations. Many people are looking at moving stages that can then be pulled into certain locations very, very easily to actually deliver that product. I would love nothing more. I would love the ability to bring out tons of shows in many different ways. All the thing I would suggest is take a good look at your community, find open spaces that people can so safely social distance, so that we don't have a direct result of any gathering that you may have.
I'm sure you've thought of this one, but are people in your instance allowed to lie in the back of their cabs, or do they need to stay in their vehicle?
The guidelines that we're providing is that they have to stay within the cab of their vehicle. If their vehicle happens to be able to lay down and still stay contained within it, then so be it. Okay.
I'm assuming this is an AV company question, because I'm assuming like when you did it in the park, you probably had just big speakers that would have the sound go out, I would assume. So they're asking for a small setup, maybe 15 cars. For sound systems, I would just say that's up to your AV company you're working with, but maybe with 15 cars, you might be able to have the windows rolled down. I don't know if the volume is going to get into the cars, but you might be able to set up something differently. But question on your layout diagram, if you might be able to make that available.
I believe so. Yeah, I'll have to double check, but I can't see that being a problem in providing that for everybody.
I don't think this is a question, but the concept of maybe having a drive-in location that people are allowed to book and host themselves for family barbecue, B-day parties and stuff like that. So good concept, probably needs some more thought put to it, but in terms of how you could keep it in a safe and distanced way. But
yeah, just watch your X factor on that. If you don't know what they're bringing to your space, how are you going to safely offer it? And that gets down to our discussions. Like we're great in Fort Saskatchewan that we have so many rental facilities that are available. As we look at any form of reopening plans, we have to decide how people are going to be using those spaces, because there's so many different ways and people being creative, of course.
Perfect. Right. Well, we've reached our hour. I think we've answered a lot of questions, so hopefully that helped people out. And I just want to say a big shout out to you guys. Thank you for doing this on, like, this was super short notice just for people on the call. We got this together in a couple days notice here. So thank you for putting such a great webinar together, and hopefully we move the needle for people that maybe you're thinking about, I can take Canada Day on now and do something for my community, or now I feel more confident in whether we can move forward with a drive-in. So thank you, Josh and Arthur. Very, very much appreciate you joining us today and helping us out.
And thank you very much for having us. We appreciate the ARPA has put this on for everybody. And more than anything else, we want everybody to be champions in your community. We're passing the torch to you guys now.
It was our pleasure. And by all means, if people have questions beyond this webinar, we are more than available. Let's pop onto a call. Let's go back and forth on email. We can definitely have some further discussions.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. And yeah, just from our perspective, we'll have the recording up. If people have any resources they want to share, I'm willing to share those. So if you've seen the HS guidelines on drive-ins that you want to link me to, I'll share the links. Yeah, and if there's other questions that come up, please send them our way, and we'll happily link you into Josh and Arthur if we can't answer them as well. So can we have Josh and Arthur's contact info for further follow-up? So I would say that I heard yes, probably. I mean, it's public anyways, so. I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I can just tell you straight off the bat, if you want to get a hold of us, just reach out to us at culture@fortsask.ca, and we can make sure that it makes it to the best part of our team to answer that question specifically.
I'm punching it into the chat box now, culture@fortsask.ca. Okay. All right, everybody. Well, I'll let you guys go. I know it's Friday before the long weekend. It'll be a different May long weekend than we're all used to, but hopefully you can get outside and enjoy it and stay in your local parks, systems, your backyards. Stay physically distanced and safe, but enjoy.